Welcome to Story Spotlight, where we go in-depth and give behind the scenes on recently published stories. I'm Emma Krause.
And I'm Maggie Kissick.
So tell me about your story, Maggie.
So this issue, I wrote Spread, which is kind of the big story right in the center of the paper. And this issue, I wrote it about the whole focus of my story is about the repercussions of concussions. So throughout my story, I kind of talk about why concussions need to be taken seriously, like what can happen if you don't, and stuff like that. And I just really think that concussions should be taken seriously. And I think like the word has kind of gotten so normalized that people like don't realize how serious that it is. But if you really slow down and you break it down and you think about it like, oh, it's a brain bleed, it's a bruise in your brain, like that's when it starts getting scary. And there can be legitimate consequences if it's not taken seriously. So I open my story, I kind of make light of that and kind of show people like what can happen if you don't take them seriously. So
why do you personally want to write this story?
Well, I've actually wanted to write this story for a while. I've been running to write this story for Spread all year. And then actually back in February, I ironically got a concussion myself, which I think was just karma for me wanting to write this story. I got it at cheer. Someone fell on my head while we were doing a stunt. But I mean, that kind of just made me want to write it more. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to write the story as soon as I wanted to because I obviously had to recover from my own concussion. But I think like having a concussion myself really helped me write this story because I can kind of put myself in the shoes of my people that I was interviewing. And yeah, that's kind of why I wanted to write it. So,
what information did you discover learning about this topic?
It's a great question. Just kind of a lot of the side effects that can happen with concussions. I had no idea that there was a condition that's called post-concussion syndrome, which if you don't take your symptoms seriously, you can get into a situation where those symptoms really just don't go away, which is so scary. And I didn't really realize that that was like the technical term for it. I didn't really realize like that's why so many of these people are experiencing like their symptoms not going away, like these lingering headaches. And I also just kind of learned like different symptoms for concussions and how they can show up in different people. So,
and what are those symptoms?
Headaches, nausea, dizziness, just overall kind of feeling off. What else? Vertigo is another big one. I mean, they really differ in every person, and you can have 3 or 4, and each one of those can differ in like severity. Some concussions get themselves better in a week. Mine took me about a month to fully recover from, and like I interviewed this one person who's still having symptoms almost 6 months later. So yeah.
Is there any additional information you'd like to add?
Concussions just really need to be taken seriously, and like I know it's a very normalized term, but just kind of come to the conclusion for yourself, like if you get a concussion, like make sure you're giving yourself the space and time to recover, and hopefully my story kind of shows people why that's important to do. So yeah.
All right, thank you for joining us. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you for having me.